Alright, so I am back on the SNES digital audio mod. If you haven't seen the first video, go check that out first. And some of this won't make sense unless you don't. What I have here is another mod for the digital output. It is coax again. It is not Toslink. I don't have one of those yet. And as you can see, it is a much more difficult board to solder together. I didn't have much trouble as I got good flux and I've got good tools for soldering those little bit smaller pitch pin packages. And for those with the keen eye, let me zoom in here a little bit. Too far. You'll notice bridged pins right there, and that is not an issue because, as you'll see, there are a bunch of pins right there that are just all ground. Now there's all kinds of stitching across this board, which is good, but there are zero thermal reliefs anywhere on any of the pads, big ones, small ones. I don't know what happened there. Maybe he's using a program that isn't set up for it. I don't know. This is not my design. I didn't import this to Eagle and change it anyway. I just ordered it straight from OSH Park. You know, their share program, what's it called? The collaborative efforts. This is L-Train's 96 kilohertz PDIF board. See it right there, it says 9624, made just 2014. There's nothing on the back except ground plane and stitching. And I will say I'm not terribly loving the layout of this thing for one major reason, and that is if you don't do this in a certain order, like if you do this chip last. Come on, camera. Can't seem to make this thing focus for me. If you do U4 there, after you get C1 and C2 put on, you are screwed. Very, very tightly packed in there with very large components around it. And the same thing kind of happens over here with the oscillator in the caps and resistors between it and the other chips. Now, obviously I did these chips first since they would be most difficult, and of course I did that one and I did that one also before I did anything else. The oscillator is one of those footprints, or it's one of those packages where it's almost like a ball grid, but it does have contacts up the side of it, if you can quite make that out or not. So it's not terribly difficult to solder, you just got to be aware of what you're doing. The worst part is this huge inductor package. That thing is ginormous. Look at that thing. I could actually show you one here. Okay, here is the inductor. I don't know if you can tell, but that's all there is to it. You know, there's 4 wires and there's 8 legs on the plastic. It's just a massive waste of space. That thing is deep down in there. It's potted down in there, which is fine, but I don't know, there's at least a few mils there where it's just wasted space on height. I don't quite get it. I really don't like this thing. It made this thing way too tall. And of course I did that thing last. After I looked at it, I was like, oh my god, I'm definitely doing that thing last. It wasn't too hard. It wasn't too difficult to solder. I did go ahead and solder the other 4 pins, even though they're not connected to anything, just for strength reasons. But time to solder this thing in and give her another test. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mod a different Mini. And the reason I'm doing this is because I think if I end up putting this new board in and I have the exact same results on my receiver, then that's a pretty good indication that my receiver sucks. So what I wanted to do is, I've got a friend or two that has a receiver I could borrow. Go borrow a different receiver and try both mods and see what happens. Maybe the first mod works just fine on a different receiver. If so, great. If not, whatever, we'll move on and try to figure something else out. So I'm going to get this installed and we'll come back. Okay, so this is what I've come up with. One couple points about this mod, actually, about this board and design or whatever. There is one less wire to hook up since it generates its own clock. You don't have to hook up pin 52, or no, yeah. You don't have to hook up the master clock pin. And you do have to figure out what number pin on the SAPU goes to what on this. This does not have the pin designations that the other one did. I really liked that. It made it a lot easier and quicker, so that would definitely be my top tip for the designer of this, is to at least go back and change the silk screen on here and put the two numbers of the audio chips on here, the pin numbers, like the other mod had. Make it a lot easier. I had to think about that for a minute, actually. So, and I've just got a RCA jack hooked up here. I think this is the way it goes. It just has D minus and D plus. It doesn't say, you know, the other one. I think the other one just had digital out, and then you just grounded the other side of it wherever. So, whatever. I think that's how it goes. There's just a little bit of lack of documentation on how to install this. I mean, he made up the board and everything, and that's great, but not a real good run through on how to do it. So I guess that's where I pick up the slack, huh? Okay, so we're going to give this a try. Again, first, want to make sure that the original analog audio out still works. It's good. Okay. Turn that off. And I believe I have it in stereo, coax in. I got nothing. Son of a bitch. Alright, so apparently what I'm tracing was a ground fault on my 3.3 volt supply rails somehow. And I was checking out the other board. U4 there is the 3.3 volt regulator. And let's see, it was 5 volt ground, 5 volt, and then this was 3.3 volt output. That was NC on the data sheet, so I don't know why that's connected to a cap. But anyway, I was showing ground all over here. So I immediately thought, well, the U4 is blown, or I had soldered some of these pins together, because this has a trace that goes right down to there. I thought, well, that's ground, so maybe those, but no, those were fine. So I had to take off this cap to get to this chip, resoldered it, still had ground to 3.3 volt. Well, I guess I should back up a little bit. Initially I was checking voltages, right? Of course, I only had like 1.1 volts off of this pin, should be 3.3. So that's when I started checking for grounds, shorts to grounds, and I had short to ground. So resoldered these pins, same thing. So I took the chip completely off thinking that would fix it. Nope, still had grounds over here. So I took this off, and let's see, the cap, the first ferrite bead, and then now with the second ferrite bead gone, so that's ground, okay, ground, and then all this was showing ground, right? And now it's not, and that is the 3.3 volt rail. Goes there, these ferrite beads out to different places, but look, still got ground right there. See, the ferrite beads are basically, I think they said they were 50 ohms, but they're basically a short. That may be 50 ohms of impedance. I'm not sure, but I was checking it with the multimeter and it was dead short. There you go, see, dead short. Anyway, it looks like it's now migrated down to here to C5 and on. So I need to start checking where that goes. This is the great thing about having an unpopulated board here. Okay, so that one comes down to this pad on C5, right? Well, as you can see, it goes down to, where am I at here? This is a 28 pin, right? So it looks like 27 and 6 get 3.3, and 28 is a ground. So it could be a short right there. Also comes down here, and there is almost no solder mask between those two pins right there, and that's ground. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 and 8, as well as 11 and 12, same thing. And you can see that trace goes off and goes back over here, and it cuts real close to the corner of that one right there. Oh, that is so bad. It should come straight off of that leg and then come around. Same thing on this leg. Look at that. Oh, can you even see that? Here, let me. Right there and right there. That is way too close. Shed some light on that. Unnecessarily close right there, buddy. Let's see, am I still on the same? Maybe I'm not. I've lost it here. Okay, so I'm bitching about shit that wasn't even right. Okay, that was not 3.3 volt down there. Let's see, what was this? 11 and 12. So it was 13 that came over to potentially hit ground, and then that pin could potentially hit ground too, which was reset input. Anyway, what else we got? Oh yeah, we even got 15 to 16, 18 to 19, and 19 to 20. All that stuff could be potential downfall for 3.3 volt right there. And it looks like the, what was that? That was the Texas Instruments chip, and it looks like the Cirrus chip could also have potential stuff like that, but I think I was safe on that one. Yeah. So anyway, I know where to start looking anyway. Let's have a better look at the populated board. Well, I looked over this pretty hard with my eye loop, but closer inspection, it looks like that pin 27 and 8 right there might have a slight bit of solder between them. I don't see any other ones with potential on that side. And everything on the other side looks good, so it could be just those two pins. I'm going to get in there with some flux on my soldering iron and go back over them, and we'll come back and look at it. Well, let's see. No, it's really, yeah, it might try to zoom in on those. Not sure if that's gonna, no. It's really hard with this lens to come in. Let's see if I can get closer though. That is about as good a shot as I can get for you. It definitely looks like the whole chip shifted to the right some, and what exacerbated this problem. It looks like I need to go in and reflow 27 and 8 there. It's really hard to tell on this in this amount of light. Got better equipment, but you can see some flux on pin 26 and around the pins. I reflowed it, and it looks better under the eye loop. So next, let's try for continuity to ground. All right, so we were hoping for no continuity to ground right here. Boom. Super. So now I got to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more components back on there, and yes, that is supposed to be ground right there. And we'll get this back together and see if we can actually make it work. Oh, Well, the components are back in, so let's just check it again. Super. And yes, I put U4 in there before I put either of the big caps back in. Doesn't look very good from this angle, but a lot of burnt flux and stuff in there too. So, get that soldered back down the ground and try it again. Unfortunately, it's a fail again, and now I'm not sure why this time, because I do have 3.3 volts going to everything that it should have. And my receiver volume's up to max. Speakers are hooked up. I'm in coax input mode. I'm kind of at a loss on this one, so I'm going to have to take a break from it and come back, or again post the video and ask for help. So let's see. Okay, so L-Train did get a hold of me. I joined the headfi.org forum just so I could talk to him, and he told me to check some stuff, which was all stuff that was okay and obvious to me. Of course, he doesn't know who I am and etc. So I checked all that, and I was about ready to put it away again. And I walk in my storage room, and I notice I do have another receiver. I don't know why I forgot about this one. You know, over the years, you upgrade technology. I usually hand off my old receivers to my sister or something like that, and this is like 2 or 3 generations of receiver ago, and she gave it back to me or something like that. I think this was a Christmas gift of 2001, and I think it actually came with these cubes that you see that I use with the PVM, etc. Pretty good bit of kit back then. However, it doesn't even have S-video inputs. It stops at composite inputs, and it only has 4 composite inputs. But I looked at it, and it does have digital inputs, coax and optical. I had just happened to look at it. I'm like, I wonder, and then bam, there it is. So anyway, I haven't done anything. I did take the resistors off for the RCA jack for the coax part, because this PCB L-Train says is actually designed straight for coax. So D plus and D minus are just, you know, pin and ground for the RCA jack. So I took those off, and I have done nothing else except just check some stuff they told me to check. And it freaking works. Now, it works, but I have not let it run long enough to see it fades in and out. So that's the big test right here. So if it works on this, it's quite possible that it'll work on my other one, the KLHR 7000. But I'm not going to get to that point yet, maybe later in the video, because I've got to drag it from the front room and unhook it and everything. But what I'm interested in is, this is my Mini. I'm interested to see if the simple version, the 1-chip version, will work on the Sony without fading in and out. So I'm going to let this run and see if it fades in and out first. Now that's all digital. Okay, I think that's pretty evident that it's working fine. Another thing that I noticed is when I turn it on, it says 96 kilohertz right there. Excellent. And I really think I can hear the bass, and I think those 3 times when it was fading in and out was that bass trying to come in. So I think it's good to go. That's excellent. However, I am still talking to L-Train about the design of the PCB. It's just not good enough. It could be better. So we're working on that too. So I think I'm going to put the other Mini back on here and see if the simple version of this mod will work with the Sony receiver. Okay, so this is the first Mini that I did with the simple mod. I've just got composite hooked up to the multi-out. It's not video modded at all. Actually, this one might be RGB modded. Yeah. The 96 kilohertz Mini is not video modded at all. But I just want to make sure that it's on and running. And I kind of want to watch the video while I'm hearing it. So let's see. That's the coax. Waiting for that bass. There it was. Well, I think that's the whole loop of the music, and it was all there. It never faded in and out. So I think I've officially declared this a win. I really hate when I have big fails like the last video and then I come to find out it's something not related. So it works on the Sony but not the KLH. No huge surprises there because the KLH is a piece of shit. However, if you notice, there never was a frequency designation on the front of the Sony receiver, where the other one actually, the other Mini actually showed 96 kilohertz. So still another big clue that I don't know that I'll be doing the simple version. You know, the 96 kilohertz just makes more sense to me because this the frequency output by the simple version is like 32,000 to 40, and I think I actually put it on my scope and it was higher than 40. It was like 32,060 or 80 hertz, which is not quite perfect. And actually I never put the scope on the actual output of this one because this is the first time I've actually known that it was fully working. So irrelevant. I am let's see, I definitely, like I said, we're going to work on the PCB design, but what I want to do is to get Kevin to look at it and see what he thinks about it, because he's way better than most people I know about PCB design, and he'll be back in a few days. So I'll let him look at it, maybe come have him come down and check it out in person and see what we can do about some design changes on that. But I'm convinced at this point the problem with the first video was my receiver. Now I've got this one, we're all good. But I'll probably stick with the 96 kilohertz mod. I might even move this mod over to, or move the 96 kilohertz mod over to this Mini if the customer wants it. It's a lot more expensive though. There is $30 worth of components. Was it $5 PCB, and of course me putting it together and installing it too. So, you know, the one that's in here, one chip, one PCB, very small PCB, same kind of hookup though, but still a lot cheaper. So if I do decide to offer this mod, I will put it on my website eventually. My website is kind of broken right now. I can't get into it to edit pages again. This happened to me, what, a couple months ago or something like that, and I was going to upgrade to WordPress, and I got frustrated with WordPress pretty quickly because I just didn't take the time to really get to know it yet. And I decided to, let's see what happened. I put in the files to make it go back to the old website, and the old website was working, so I gave up on WordPress pretty quickly. But if it's happening again, it's just probably going to keep happening, and it's probably more on GoDaddy's end of the problem, you know, because it's PM Wiki and it's not supported with GoDaddy, whatever, so who knows. But I'll figure it out eventually, and when I do, I'll post it on the proper pages about offering this mod. But thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.